Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm going to be talking about Episode 5 of The Legend of Korra called The Spirit of Competition. Well, it was only a matter of time, and here it is, our big shipping episode. Now, for one thing I want to get out of the way really quick is that I'm not a shipper. If you enjoy that sort of thing, great, knock yourself out, but I'm not a fan of getting worked up about this sort of thing. So I'm just going to mostly stick to talking about what happens in this episode in terms of the characters. The feedback I've gotten from people about my videos for this show indicates that they really do like that, so that's what I'm going to focus on. So let's dive right into it. And let's start off with the character of Asami. We don't get to see a whole lot of her this episode. She just pops in for a few lines. But one thing that is established in this episode is it's been a few weeks since the last one. So I like that they did mention this because it shows that there is something solid to her relationship with Mako. That it's not just hormones. I mean, okay, granted, a couple of weeks is not a long time. However, if any of you are in high school or if you remember high school, for some relationships, a couple of weeks can actually be a long time. So I like this that it says, okay, they've managed to get at least a little bit of mileage out of their relationship, and it's still at that stage where they're sort of really being cutesy with each other, and everybody else around them is yeah, I mean, come on, we've all been around a couple like that. And at some point, a lot of us have been that couple. My personal feelings on this is, I really don't have an opinion about. I still don't really have very much of an opinion about Asami one way or the other, but I still think that she's a solid enough character, and I do want to see more of her. Okay, so let's dive right into the heart of it. This is our big love triangle episode. So let's start off with, I guess, since we've brought up Asami, let's continue on with Mako. And there's a lot going on with our guy this week. He finds himself in that classic position of having to choose between two girls, the eternal Betty or Veronica question, if you are familiar with Archie comics. Only in this particular case, it's the rich girl who is otherwise very nice, down to earth, is the Betty, and the poor girl, at least in terms of finances, is Korra, is Veronica. And I do think that it does speak well to Mako's character that he's not trying to play these girls. The fact that he is simultaneously attracted to two different girls and has feelings for both of them, it genuinely bothers him. He doesn't want to string anyone along, and that's one of the things that I think I really like about Mako is he's made some bad choices in his life. He's done some hard things to survive, but at his core, he is an extremely moral person. And it is a struggle for him to admit that he does have feelings for Korra, because by doing so, he not only kind of risks hurting Asami's feelings, but he's not oblivious to the way his brother feels about him. So it's really not a surprise that eventually just admitting that much to himself, as much to Korra, is a struggle for him. But I also like the fact that when he does admit it, he doesn't immediately, run off and break up with anybody or, say, okay, yes, Korra, I have feelings for you, forget Asami. No, he's deciding to deal with this as best he can. And it is, as best we can tell, going to stick with the girl he's with for now until he knows one way or the other exactly where he wants to go. And you can kind of argue whether or not he should just not be with anyone until he knows for sure. And I won't disagree with you on that, but I'd have to say that if I was in Mako's position, I think I might do the same thing. It's a hard place to be, but he's trying to make the best decision he can. And I do like the fact that when he does point out that dating teammates in their circumstances could be a potentially bad idea. I mean, there are reasons why militaries do have laws against fraternization. Now, granted, a pro-bending team is certainly not the military, but his point about how their personal lives could affect their play on the field I mean, this is very, very clearly realized in the final part of the episode. They almost lose everything. And remember, this is Mako and Bolin's, one big shot at the big prize. If they blow this, they're going to spend the rest of they're almost certainly going to have to spend the rest of their lives scrimping along, living hand to mouth. So it is perfectly reasonable that Bolin is going to advocate this line of thinking. As much as he might feel for Korra, his brother is still always in his heart going to come first. And again, I think that really speaks well of Mako's character. So, since we're talking about his brother, let's hop over to Bolin. I was watching these early episodes, and I really, apart from when he first sees Korra, I wasn't really sure just how Bolin was into her. Now, remember, last week he brings her that little bit of, I guess it was a cake or candy or something like that, and a flower to thank her for saving him from the Chi Benders. And when he's explained to him that Tarlok's gifts are not intended in a romantic sense, he was obviously quite pleased. So that sort of brought me on board with the fact that they were going to try and go somewhere with Korra and Bolin. And I have to say, they really did do that very well. I have to admit, I really saw more than a little bit of myself in the way that Bolin expressed his feelings to Korra after Mako had rejected her. And part of it is, of course, that him succeeding there was that he was saying to Korra exactly what it is that she needed to hear at that moment. Because it doesn't matter who you are. If for any reason you tell someone that you're interested in them and they reject you, yeah, you're going to be down about that. And I also think that the way he said that, not just the timing, but just the enthusiasm, the directness of what it was he was saying, I think that might more appeal to Korra's sensibilities. Like, look at the way she confessed her feelings to Mako. Now obviously this is a guy who was also involved in a committed relationship with a woman already, but I can't help but get the feeling that Korra just simply came on too strong. I mean, that's kind of like being hit with a fire hose, really. And a guy like Mako, I really do think that's sort of the wrong tactic to take with someone like that. Now, people are different. Some people, when you're trying to initiate a relationship with them, that kind of enthusiasm, that energy, that flat out adoration that Bolin brings, some people are just going to absolutely eat that up. And for others, it's not that they aren't going to be flattered by that. It's just going to feel like someone's coming on too strong. And you might feel like they're being put in an awkward position. So anyway, again, it's just a matter of different people being different. And I think that Bolin's sort of way of expressing his feelings, he did so in a way that would really appeal to Korra's personal tastes. And then we get to see some really great stuff of Korra and Bolin together. And, I have to say, this really does say to me that Korra and Bolin, in some ways, are very much cut from the same cloth. Their personalities do have an awful lot of similarities. And seeing that expressed, it really was great. Because look at what happened last episode. I mean, that was a very dark, very heavy episode. And after something like that, we did really need to just take a step back and, have some fun, have some laughs. But unfortunately for poor Bolin, him and Korra having a lot in common personality-wise and some in terms of interests, that's just not enough. The way people are attracted to each other has been mystifying people ever since the first human beings that could really call themselves human beings came into existence millions of years ago. And frankly, I don't think we've made much progress on that mystery in the years and years since then. Someone once said about this, what I think is the only real progress humans have probably ever made in understanding why people are attracted to some people and not others. And it is simply these words: the heart wants what the heart wants. again, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to, and it probably never will be. It's just simply the way we as human beings work. Not to get too personal, but I know I've certainly more than once found myself wondering, why is it that I am attracted to this person? And a lot of the time, sometimes I've been able to figure out reasons about them, things that I liked, and other times it's just been a big mystery. But anyway, let's move on to talk about Korra. Now, one thing that I think we have to remember about Korra is, as best I can tell, she's never really spent much time around people her own age. And really, in a way, Mako and Bolin are really the first guys she's ever been around. And take a look back at the original series. The same was more or less true for Toph, who's the first male that who's not her father, that she spent a lot of time around. Well, that's Sokka. And, it never really went very far, but she very clearly developed a little bit of a crush on him there for a while. So, it is not so surprising that Korra would develop feelings for one of these guys, and it just, by nature of who knows what, happened to be Mako instead of Bolin. And Korra's lack of experience in dealing with people her own age does lead to some pretty interesting moments. I mean, she literally goes out and tries to get advice from children. So we have that wonderful scene with her and Ikki and Jinora. And from what I can tell, it sounds like Jinora, I don't know what the heck kind of book she's been reading. It sounds like maybe the Avatar world's version of Gothic romances. Not really sure if that's appropriate for a kid her age, but yeah. But this did lead, however, to a really wonderful moment for Pima. She's another character who's mostly been in the background of things, but here we see her stepping up and giving Korra some genuine motherly advice, which, now that Katara's not around and her parents are back at the South Pole, I think that sort of thing really is going to be a very positive force in Korra's life, something that she needs. And while I kind of wish she'd sort of expanded on her story about how she won Tenzin over beyond confessing, which probably would have been quite helpful to Korra if she had done that, it still did give her character some much needed depth, and shines a little bit of a light on Tenzin. Now, keep in mind, if you do the math on all this, Tenzin and her would have gotten married when she was, I believe, 25 and he was 41. So, again, we have that big age difference, but it does sort of help us to understand that, Tenzin, he has had this whole other life before he got married and had a family. So I'm thinking that's something that we might see more of on the show, and I'm certainly very interested to learn more about that. Tenzin is a very interesting character. I definitely want to know more about his life. Okay, so wow, there's just so much to talk about, and I've only got about 2 minutes left. Let me see. Oh yeah, one thing I have to applaud the characters and the writers for is that by the end of the episode, Mako, Bolin, and Korra have all taken very mature responses to the tension and the arguments caused between them. And honestly, I think it's out of all three of them, it's Bolin who steps up and in his conversation with Korra, after he's had a little time to get over her rejecting him, really gives her the speech about how we're still cool in all this. And I really liked how understated that little moment between him and Mako was. They said, he really says simply, "Are we going to be okay after this?" And Mako just says, "Of course, we're brothers." So again, some wonderful writing there. Okay, almost out of time. Real quick, I enjoyed the reference to Flameo noodles. I got a big kick out of that. Don't really have much to say about Tano. He's just this version of a the obnoxious jock that you see in every teenager movie, and for some reason he looks sort of like a goth. All right, I'm almost out of time, folks. Overall, this is a really nice episode. I enjoyed it. Great character development. Until next time, I will see you and have a good one.